right, welcome in to Big Hitters Only. We have a bit of an off-topic podcast today. First, we're brought to you by Delta Spirits, drinkdeltaspirits.com, a Greensboro company, Greensboro and Kernersville. Go to drinkdeltaspirits.com, use the promo code BHO10, get 10% off your offer. We got some sales last week coming off the baseball podcast. A great alcohol substitute, very relaxing after work. If you don't want to drink a beer or cocktail, drink Delta Spirits, blueberry lemonade, Paloma. Here's the other one, cherry limeade, and you will feel it. I don't know how these are legal in North Carolina, but you will feel it. All right, we're welcoming Emmy-nominated Greensboro meteorologist Tim Buckley, the lead head meteorologist for WFMY in Greensboro, which is the flagship main local news channel in Greensboro. Tim, what's up, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I was asking you before if I was the first non-Tar Heel alum, but you said no. I'm not breaking that seal.
Yeah, this may be the only. We're going to touch on some sports for sure, but this may be the one that's the most non-sports focused. Even though we did a marathon podcast, which is a completely different type of sports there, but this is going to be career meteorology, getting to some weather talk, but also some off-topic stuff about Greensboro, the business. Definitely unique, and you're very professional, so it's like I don't need to work with you on how to talk, how to keep it short, how to keep it long, so it's gonna be a fun time here with Tim Buckley. So you went to Penn State, you're the lead meteorologist for Greensboro, and I've always said that like TV, like sports, has become a lesser part of local news. The local news is always sports at the end, but the weather is like the main reason why people, I think, watch local news. And this could be the first podcast I think my mom listens to, because my mom is a big fan of yours. She like knew about you, and I was like, I kind of know Tim Buckley. We're friends from social media and Twitter and Instagram. We chat back and forth. But let's go back to your background. Did you always want to be a meteorologist? How did that start? How'd you get into it? We'll go from there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, by the way. So when I was little, I mean, everyone has their little hobbies or little topics. The first thing I wanted to do as a career was I felt like I wanted to be a zookeeper, which I don't know. I just like going to the zoo and I liked animals. And then eventually I found out they mostly like sweep up the elephant poop or something like that. So I pivoted. I grew up way up north near Syracuse, actually. So if we're talking ACC, that's kind of my home territory up there. Just gets more snow than anywhere else in the eastern United States. My hometown would get like 200 inches of snow a year, which is just kind of crazy. So anybody that lives there, the weather is just like a big, huge part of how you live your life for 6 months or so. So as a little kid, I don't know, I thought it was kind of cool. And this was back, in the 90s. Kind of I'm in that millennial group where grew up without the internet. Internet came around when I was in middle school, and then we go from there. But as a kid, the only way you could get the weather was watching the Weather Channel. And so I would watch it, and I would tell my mom what the weather was going to be. She didn't really care all the time, but I would let her know anyway. So that was my fascination. I just wanted to know, were we going to have school that day? Was I going to be able to have my December birthday party, or did we get a foot of snow? Those type of things. So I always knew I had that weather interest, and I kind of geeked out and idolized the Cantoris and the local meteorologist people. Shout out Dave Eichhorn from Channel 9 in Syracuse. He was kind of my guy. And if we had Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff back then, I probably would have had Tim's weather page back in the day. We didn't have that, so went to college instead. But it did work out. I've had this probably since I was about 6th or 7th grade.
Did you go into college knowing you wanted to be a meteorologist?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So when I was looking for schools, it was basically who has weather, which sounds like a simple question, but a lot of schools don't really have that as an option. You can't just kind of pick your favorite school. Carolinas, the main one is actually NC State. They have a big meteorology program. So it just depends on what part of the country you're in. But anyway, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was pretty sure I wanted to do it on TV. You don't have to do TV for weather. I have a friend that works for the M&M candy company as a meteorologist. he tells them when to buy corn.
Oh, okay.
It's like a lot of different offshoots that you can go
Yeah.
into. Yeah.
So is your degree like in science, like meteorology, like that's a degree?
Yeah, and it's a good question because you can go a couple different paths to get to that TV spot. Back in the day, nobody got a meteorology science degree to talk about it on television. That just wasn't the way that it was. You went into broadcasting and you're more of a personality, and we didn't have great technology anyway. You couldn't show a zoomed in tornado warning or a Doppler radar. That didn't really exist. Once the technology got better and people kind of geeked out on the weather a little bit more, it got more common for people to be more scientists on TV.
Yeah.
So I do have a science degree in meteorology. So if I changed my mind, I could go work for NOAA or the military or do research or anything like that. So my degree is straight like that. At school, we had concentrations. So meteorology degree, but you could pick a concentration in forecasting and communications, which was mine. Or you could pick it in something else like air quality or, energy trading or those type of things.
Interesting. And I guess some people enter meteorology as a journalist first, like a TV degree, and they kind of learn the weather once they get on TV. It's like, we need you to know weather and present it, but they have the journalism TV degree. Is that one route as well?
For sure. Yeah. And there are a lot of people that do that. They might get into journalism, and I always say weather is the best job in the building. That's my opinion, but some people, after they start out as a journalist, they tend to agree with me, and they might want to switch. So I know a couple buddies of mine, they've gone that route. You can kind of do like an add-on afterwards, like kind of a crash course in weather, in meteorology.
Yeah.
If you wanted to switch. And I always say, like, the most important part about my job or anyone who's on TV's job, the forecasting is the big part of it, but it's really your communication. And so any journalist is usually going to be a really good communicator. Or you should be anyway. If you're a broadcaster, you should be a good communicator. So to add on that science knowledge, isn't as big of a lift as long as you're good at explaining. It's really all about the explaining, especially nowadays as computer models get better and stuff. We're not doing as much forecasting as we used to back in the day.
Are meteorologists on TV who don't have a degree frowned upon? Is like, oh, this guy's kind of like an amateur. Like, they're not in it for the real science, the real hardcore meteorology stuff.
This is the behind the scenes dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in college, we would always like talk badly about, oh, this guy doesn't have a degree.
Yeah.
Or if you go to there's rivalries too, right? So, any kind of a meteorology school might have like, oh, well, these people at Mississippi State, they don't take as much calculus as we do at Penn State and NC State. So there's all this little stuff behind the scenes.
It's like Mississippi State, they don't know snow. Mississippi State, they don't know snow. Or like a Kansas weatherman's like, man, Penn State kids, they don't know tornadoes like we do.
It's funny because all of the big weather schools, you have like Oklahoma, any idiot knows they get tornadoes.
Yeah.
Miami, they get the hurricanes. Mississippi State has all that stuff too. The joke with Penn State, it is literally about the biggest meteorology school in the country. We get no interesting weather. There's nothing interesting that happens there. It's just cloudy and cold and snowy and it's Big Ten weather. It's just boring.
Yeah. So, all right. So you go to Penn State. I think you're a grade lower than me. I graduated high school in 04, college in 08. You're 05, 09 at Penn State.
Same age,
so,
basically.
So you're 39?
Mm-hmm.
Or 38?
Coming up on it.
Oh, wait.
38 and a half.
Love it. So I was looking at your LinkedIn. So you've only been at two places truly as a TV guy, right?
Yeah. So basically, right out of school, I'd never been to North Carolina before, not even on a trip, not anything like that. Back in those days, you would package up your best stuff. Mm-hmm. They still call these things demo reels or something, but you would kind of splice things together. Mm-hmm. And in 2009, it was DVD. That was like the accepted format. So you would burn these DVDs. Mm-hmm. You go to Staples and buy some, you package them up, make a nice little jewel case, basically, and then go to the post office and mail them out. I think I sent out like 34 of these things in a couple months. Nobody got back to me. Wilmington, North Carolina got back to me. So that was a blessing. They were the first place that kind of reached out to me. I went down and I haven't really left North Carolina since. So I moved here middle of 2009, a couple months after graduating. And that was like the best place, honestly, to start a job, because who doesn't want to live in Wilmington?
Mhm.
And they get cool weather. And as far as like, local television, you start in the single A baseball or minor leagues or something. People don't care if you make a lot of mistakes there, and then you can kind of climb the ladder if you want to. It's all about your comfort. But I was in Wilmington about 4 years. I didn't really want to leave because it's the beach, and I work the mornings, so I keep the beach chair in my trunk and hop down there every afternoon if I wanted to.
So I want to get the markets and also your transition to Greensboro, but is like evening news anchor during the weekday evenings, like 5 p.m. Is that the premiere? Like that's the lead anchors doing those, like Monday at 5 p.m. or 5:30, whenever it is.
Yeah. It's kind of a trickier question to answer nowadays than I think it used to be. I think traditionally that was always the case. They would have, back in the day, the evening news had a little bit more prestige to it than the mornings. Heavier topics, more stuff going on. Usually the mornings is just kind of lighter, waking up, and here's what happened yesterday. And it's not so much of here's what happened today. So you don't have, the murder, the crimes, and all these things. And from a weather perspective, there's usually not a lot of weather going on in the mornings. It's here's what's happening later on today. But if you're going to have bad storms or tornadoes or something, that's usually the afternoon and evening. So short answer is, yeah, traditionally that's been like the main spot if they're going to have their main folks in the evenings. But nowadays viewership is changing a little bit more. More people watch TV in the morning than in the evening. So some stations have switched it up. You might see some main talent go to mornings, or I know some other chief meteorologists in other markets that they're on the morning show now instead of on the evening show. And that might be a personal preference. It's better for people to have kids and those type of things to have those hours and not work until midnight. So
Yeah.
Now it's kind of just depends on the situation.
And you did weekends too at Wilmington, is right?
I started there doing weekend news. This was in 2000. You remember 08 and 09. This was the recession time. A week after I got there, they canceled the weekend news.
Okay.
So I don't know why they hired me, but they did. And after that, I did reporting for a while.
Oh, nice.
News reporting. I kind of just figured it out. And did some weather as fill-in mostly, and then one guy left, so I did mornings. So I was mornings there for the most of the time, and then when I came here, I did weekends for a couple years, and then I've been doing the chief thing Monday through Friday after that.
So the move to Greensboro, is that just a little bit bigger market? You thought maybe a better path to becoming the head meteorologist?
It wasn't something I like sought out necessarily. I knew I was kind of outgrowing Wilmington, mostly just from like a financial standpoint. Like when it comes to TV, it's only about however many eyeballs you have watching those commercials. There's just not that many in Wilmington, so it's kind of hard to pay the Wilmington rents and that sort of thing. So knew I wanted to get somewhere else, and I had a buddy up here who told me about an opening. Again, never been to Greensboro, so it was just kind of a theme here. But came for an interview. It seemed to be a good fit, and like a couple weeks later I started. So it was really fast, actually, kind of just a leap of faith, to be honest with you. And that was about 12 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't realize you'd been here that long. You're deeply ingrained in Greensboro for sure. So WFMY, I mean, how often you get recognized? You're the lead meteorologist around town. I mean, you're on TV, every day. You have a really strong social media presence. I think it's great what you do on Twitter, and I guess some Instagram stuff as well. My mom recognizes, like, are you like a celebrity? Because I remember, shout out my buddy Robert Hogwood. His dad, Mike Hogwood, was the sports anchor at WFMY. And you're a local celebrity. You're probably the most recognized person around town because of your TV presence. How often do you get recognized? You feel that burden of being, you're the guy for weather in Greensboro.
I would say not as much probably as I gather it used to be back in the day, but yeah, I mean, if I'm at the grocery store, people ask me if it's going to rain tomorrow. That definitely happens. And it happens a lot more if I'm, on dinner break and I'm in a tie. That's I think more recognizable. If it's on the weekend and I've just cut the grass and I need to go get a six pack or something, that's not maybe as often of a recognizing thing. But that happens. That happens a lot, and it doesn't bother me a bit. Like I'm happy to talk about the weather. People they'll apologize. Like, I hate to ask you, but is it going to rain tomorrow? Like, no, I actually like this stuff. Like, I don't care. That's fun for me to talk about. And it's good to know people are watching, because we're in a sterile studio. There's no audience. This is not a performance. You're just talking to a camera. So you can kind of forget that there are people out there sometimes, which is why I enjoy the social media part of things. Facebook is huge. I know not everyone's on Facebook, but we got all the people on there. Twitter I enjoy, like you said. Even nowadays, has its good and bad. But yeah, it's fun connecting with people, and that's why I like local TV. I have some friends that have pivoted to national, and there are a lot of great things about doing that. But if you might be talking about the weather across the whole country or the news across the whole country, you're not really connected to a community so much. And if you're trying to forecast the weather for a place, honestly, it's a lot easier when you live there, because you can get used to it and the patterns, and just simple stuff of, you can look out the window and know, yeah, I still have standing water in my yard because it's rained 6 days in a row. We should probably talk about flooding, those type of things.
Yeah. It's super interesting, like being able to be comfortable knowing what to expect because you've been here so long, and understanding your geography aspect of it. Quickly on Twitter, I think you do a great job on Twitter. Like, that's probably evolved the business approach as well. Like, it obviously increases your brand. I've been on Twitter since 2009. You were able to give up-to-date updates, whereas back in the day you couldn't do that. I mean, and now with TV you can't really. You can pop in here and there, but Twitter, it's instant. Like, something changes, you can tweet it out, and it's so current. You do these little videos, daily videos almost on Twitter, which is great as well. What's your approach to Twitter? How has it helped you? What do you like about it? And how has social media maybe evolved the weatherman meteorology business?
Well, it's totally changed everything. I mean, and again, it kind of like is like a theme. I guess everything's always changed, but when I started this business about 15 years ago, there was no Twitter, or maybe there was, but people didn't use it like that. I certainly wasn't on it. It was a couple of years before I got into it. And it's changed everything, right? Like, it's really pivoted the urgency of news, of weather, of sports. It's great. I love it as a consumer. I mean, if it's rare that I'm watching a sport that I'm not on Twitter at the same time, as long as my stream is up to speed anyway. So for weather, I mean, I like to kind of be of the approach of, if you go to my Facebook, or if you go to my Twitter, you should be able to know what the weather's going to be that day. So I want it to be up to date just all the time. And it's kind of competitive, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're giving more updates than the other guy.
Yeah.
And I think I give more updates than pretty much anybody, at least around here. So that's something that I enjoy. But as far as how does it help or hurt or change the business, it's hard to say, because if you're watching me on there, you might not be watching on television. So there is that kind of give and take. But at the same time, it's all about just, getting that info out. The partly cloudy and the rain shower here or there isn't so important. But when we do have really bad weather, we really want you to know so you can be safe. I mean, we've had a couple bad weather events in Greensboro since I've lived here. Not all the time, but that's kind of the important stuff. So
yeah, I will, from my perspective, and you touched on there, which is super interesting. Like, we don't work for, when I was covering UNC for Inside Carolina and now for 24/7 Sports and stuff, like, and you with WFNY, like, we don't work for Twitter. We don't work for X. We work for another business. So when you provide content on X or Twitter, you're essentially giving X and Twitter your information, your insight, your scoop, your intel. So I was always taught, and I became a big proponent of it when I was working for a subscriber-based company that survives off traffic and subscribers, equivalent to you with TV eyes and TV views. Like, you want all your good stuff being on TV or being on the website, and you have a website as well at WFNY. So like, we would withhold information because, like, we want people to go to our site to find it, not go to Twitter. But there's a balance too, because I think Twitter is a great marketing tool. I think
Mhm.
people who don't use Twitter, like there's a idea that they're not working, they're not existing, which is false. But people see you on Twitter and know
Mhm.
you're out there, know you're working hard, know you're providing information, and that they may not see from other people. So I think it's an unbelievable marketing tool. And I always say with myself, and I think some people live by this kind of code or whatever. Like if you're not promoting yourself, no one's going to promote you. Like you have to
Yeah,
be your biggest proponent and provide the image um, and your intel and your expertise on that platform. And I don't know how you kind of approach that as well. We're the same age, came up with the same kind of technology.
yeah,
It's been big for what I do as well.
for sure. I mean, I think I see it with you for sure. Anything Carolina related, you're always one of the top person that pops up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't happen by accident, and that's a lot of hard work over a lot of years. But like you said, if you have an employer, it is a business. So I am trying to push people to our app, our website.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, we're it's been around for about a year now, but we're still piloting, your own streaming app that we're going to have, and we're going to have content throughout the day. So traditionally, you might only catch us on, interrupting Jeopardy or something if there's a tornado warning. That's still the same, but now we have WFMI Plus. You can have this extra app for you where we're going to be on just like all the time talking about stuff that might not be life threatening, but it's a bad storm. Just turn us on. We'll just be there. So we're
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot more than we used to. So we're trying to promote that out with tweets, Facebooks, whatever. It is your own marketing tool. And just from a personal brand standpoint, like you said, I think if anybody's not using social to advance their personal brand, that's really silly. Because it's so helpful that way. Plus you can see what everybody else is doing in your industry, right? So I follow probably not every TV meteorologist there is, but most of them. I want to see what they're up to. I want to see what they're doing, and it's good to have that connection. It's good to build up that network as well. So,
Yeah,
I can't quit it. There was a moment or time where I was like, I'm gonna quit X or Twitter. I'm in for the long haul. I can't
for
stop.
sure.
Plus people. If you only follow me on there and you get your tornado warning from me on there, that's fine. Like I'm okay with that, and I want you to be informed. So I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I don't think people are not gonna watch you on TV because they follow you on Twitter. They're more likely to then watch you on TV or go to the website because they follow you on Twitter, I would think. But yeah, I mean, it's a changing world. TV is not local news TV. All due respect, is not as big as it used to be because of the internet.
Yep.
But yeah, and it's a great tool, like you said, like to send people to other avenues. Hey, you like this? Here's this and this and this, and then here's more on the app. Here's more on the website. Here's more on TV. At what time do you go on? 5:30 or 5 or 6?
Yeah, every day, 4, 5, 6,
Okay.
and 11.
Are you on
The big
all?
late one.
Are you on all those 4, 5, 6, and 11?
Yeah,
Damn. Okay. All right.
not
Let's.
every day. Some days I get a little help at 4, but kind of in general, yes.
Do y'all do a full show at 4, 5, 6? I thought 6 is national, right?
So we're on from 4 to 6:30. The national stuff comes on at 6:30
Okay.
to 7. Yep.
And
Then we
then
get a little break, and then we'll do 11 o'clock.
dang.
So.
All
Mhm.
right, well, let's get into that. What's an average day? Weekday, you're not traveling to Penn State football, going down to Miami. I see all your travels. Tuesday, Wednesday, breakdown
Yeah.
from when you wake up, what you do, get into details to when you go to bed.
Sure. So it's a weird schedule. I go I don't go into work until like 2:30. So I have all morning, all midday to do what I want. A lot of coworkers of mine will sleep till like 10 or 11 or something like that. That's fine. I'm not like a big stay up late guy. I work late, but I kind of come home. I'll go to bed I get home at 12. I probably go to bed by 1. Like that's just kind of me. So I'll wake up at like 8 or 9 or 10, depending on the day. And our weather's pretty good most of the time in North Carolina. So I try and get outside. We've talked about this. You messaged me a couple times. What are the good walking spots or the, running trails or anything like that? I think Greensboro has some of the best parks of anywhere I've ever lived. I like to get outside. So you might see me out at the parks every now and then, just doing a little walk, yard work, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, I don't go to work till like 2 o'clock. And so when we go to work, put together a forecast. We're not getting, sometimes people say, well, where you get your script from, or there's nothing like that. If I wanted to, I could just go to the National Weather Service and say, well, here's what they're saying. I'll copy it down. I don't like to do that because they forecast for half the state, and I'm just forecasting for our area, and I tend to think I know what I'm talking about. So I'll agree with them on most everything, but I might have some disagreements. So we'll put together our own forecast, and if you're watching us, you'll get our opinion. Then we got to make all the graphics that you see on TV. So some of them are automatic, but otherwise, we're drawing fronts, and we're, making up little tidbits and stats. Like today we'll say how much it's rained over the last several days or whatever. So we put all that together. So you have to have a little bit of a graphic design idea. And then the rest of it is the presentation part. And that's the easy part. That's you're just talking on camera. But that 2:30 to 4 window for me is really jam-packed. So I'm just like, don't talk to me at that point. And then once I'm on TV, there's actually a bit of downtime because I'm not on all the time. It's every couple minutes.
So only an hour and a half to prep, to get all those graphics in, to look at the meteorology. I mean, it seems like that's a lot of legwork that
it's not enough time. It used to be more time. We didn't used to have a 4. So now I've kind of scrunched it. If the weather's really busy, I'll come in at like 1 or 1:30 or something. And we're always kind of on call, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're expecting bad weather the whole day, I'll split up with the morning guys, and they'll take 12 hours and we'll all take 12 hours or something if we think that we need to be there all the time. So every day's a little bit different, but that's a typical day. And then you get a little break after the evening news, come home, have some dinner, and then you go back in. So it's a weird schedule. I always tell people, people watch TV when they're home. So if you work in TV, you're going to be working when people are waking up or when they're going to bed, one or the other. Yeah. It's not so much in the middle of the day. That 9 to 5 doesn't exist for a ton of people except the bosses.
Yeah. I would love that open mornings. I mean, I'm most productive between 7 a.m. and kind of like lunchtime 1. So to have that free, I know you're sleeping for part of it, but like you can get a lot of stuff done. I feel like there's no traffic on the roads between like 6 a.m. and 9, and you can like really get a lot done around the house and stuff. So that's a cool schedule. But then you're working late at night, so there's no shows. You're not watching shows at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. You're locked into work. Yeah,
it's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, let's talk weather. So, I mean, you think of meteorologists, you think of big snowstorms, and you think of hurricanes. Obviously, rain is probably a weekly, daily thing in your business. But what is your favorite type of weather to track? We'll start there, and then we'll evolve from that discussion point.
I think from a big weather standpoint, favorite weather to track for me are hurricanes, and the reason for that is it's really meteorology like on full display. And what I mean by that, hurricanes are the one type of bad weather that nobody ever again will be caught by surprise by. We, at this point, in my opinion, we almost have too much warning for hurricanes. You can be worried about a hurricane now for 14 days if you want to, because we can see them forming really far away, and you can track them, day by day. Oh, it's over by Africa. Oh, it's coming around. And this model says that. There's a lot of analysis, and I like the analysis. There's a lot of noise that comes around in the social media space now, but from just a forecasting standpoint, I like being able to track over several days and then kind of hone in those details and get people ready for that. Plus, they're huge events. They're, at worst, they can be generational, moments in time of impact. Certainly in North Carolina, we've had so many of those. And at best, they can be an inconvenience for a week or two. So they're a huge deal. And I think we, just from a geek standpoint, I like being able to see how it evolves over a week or two. I don't love tornadoes because they're really scary, and we don't have a lot of time to let you know about it. We might only have 5 minutes sometimes because they form really fast and they can go away really fast. And there's a little bit of guesswork is not the right word, but we have the technology to see a storm that might be producing a tornado even now in 2025, we're not able to, using the radars that we have, we're not always able to say for sure if that is a tornado or that's not. So there's still a little bit of safe than sorry warning. Tornadoes or hurricanes are much more
Yeah.
concrete.
So let's get into hurricanes. So, what makes them hard? I mean, obviously you have the time, but what makes them hard to track in terms of their direction? You can get into a little of the science here because, like, that's huge. Like knowing where it's going to hit, when it's going to hit, where it's going to intensify, the angle it takes up. I mean, there's obviously so many examples of different the ways it goes. It goes to Florida, it goes to New Orleans, it goes up, and it avoids the coast. Like, what's the different nuances of hurricanes that makes it so hard to track, and how do you end up yourself providing the best forecast for those?
Yeah, so with hurricanes, when it comes to where they're going to go or how they're going to move or how they're going to turn, it all has to do with the way that the winds are. It sounds simple, but it's all about how the winds are blowing in the atmosphere at that time. So if a hurricane's coming in like this, across the Atlantic, what I'm going to be looking at ahead of time is what are the winds basically in the upper levels of the atmosphere, like up where airplanes fly. You hear about the jet stream and those type of things. Sometimes it might have a big dip in the east, and sometimes it might be way up in Canada. Depending on how that wind is blowing is going to determine whether that hurricane just keeps going straight over toward like the Gulf, or if it starts to curve up and come toward the Carolinas, or if it curves enough that it kind of gets away from us. So you can have a couple of those different paths that we've seen so often. The one that comes right into North Carolina, like a Fran or something, or a Florence, those are the biggest, bad ones because they're not curving away. But we have so many more often ones that are curving away. Like if you have the jet stream digging in a cold front that's going to push it out. There are a lot of those examples too. But we're actually pretty good now at forecasting those turns. A lot better than we used to be. That's probably the thing we do best with hurricanes now is that actual movement and the path. One of the things we're still pretty lacking at or bad at is predicting that they go through these big swings in intensity. And we've seen that a lot in recent years where, okay, this storm's a category 1 right now. And, Hurricane Center says it's going to be a cat 2 tomorrow. Sometimes it goes from a 1 to a 4 in like 36 hours. And we aren't always expecting it. And that's pretty scary stuff. And as far along as the technology has come, there's a lot to still improve on with that. And there's some research and some speculation that some of that has to do with, climate change and warmer waters. It doesn't seem like we're getting more storms than we used to. That's what a lot of people think. The number of storms isn't necessarily going up by a lot or a meaningful amount, but the number of storms that are going from like level 1 to level 4, like that is scary. So that we call it rapid intensification. That's happening a lot more than it used to. So that kind of really changes your preparation. If you're the mayor of Wrightsville Beach, you're gonna plan a lot differently for a Cat 1 than a Cat 4, right? And so if you only get that warning in a day or two before it hits, that's not good.
So is it just warming waters that cause the intensity? What creates something to go from a tropical storm or a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 or 4?
Hurricanes get their strength mostly from warm water.
Okay.
But it's not only that, especially when we get almost all of our bad hurricanes in August and September. People talk about it being a 6-month season. North Carolina, you pretty much only have to worry badly in August, September, and maybe a little bit into October. At that point of the year, the water is always warm. It's always warm. You're never going to go to the beach in August and it's less than 80 degrees. It's just always warm here. So what else is there? It's the water temperature, but it's also winds. So if you have hurricanes don't like to go into an area where the wind is blowing a lot in the atmosphere because it can kind of tilt their thunderstorms. And then the storm kind of loses its organization. So what we're trying to figure out is, are there going to be some winds that are tearing up the storm, or is it going to be nice and calm? Kind of like worst case scenario is super warm water, very calm winds. That's a perfect environment for a storm to go into and just kind of blow up. But like I said, we're still figuring out why they're getting super strong. It's not just the temperature of the water at the top, but if you have that warm water going all the way down like hundreds of feet, the hurricanes actually churn up the ocean.
Yeah.
So they want that water to be really warm for a big depth also too. And lately that's getting warmer. This has been getting warmer.
And guys, if you're appreciate that answer. If you're watching if you're listening to Big Hitters Only, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Big Hitters Only on YouTube. You're seeing Tim Buckley doing a lot of hand motions, a lot of arm and hand motions to symbolize and direct where the water and the hurricane stuff is. So check out YouTube, subscribe there. Definitely a lot of good stuff on our YouTube page. Okay. Getting a hurricane wrong, I mean, that happens, and that's a bad look for meteorologists, right? Is that kind of definitely a big thought when you're tracking these, and how often does that happen? I mean, you can go a little bit maybe back into history with some ones that, not you, but just in general that have, I mean, Katrina's an example, I guess, Helene maybe, but I don't, like what, I mean, I guess just go into like when meteorology goes wrong that really affects people's lives.
Yeah. There are obviously some misses and bad you can always have a bad forecast no matter what kind of weather it is. The most nightmares I have with bad forecasts in our area is snow. People are insane with snow, and that's kind of what really keeps me up at night, missing a big one like that. As far as hurricanes, in general, like I said before, you're not going to get caught off guard by a hurricane usually now. We say it's going to be a hurricane. Yes, it's a hurricane. That much is pretty cut and dry. But getting the finer details, or I think actually the bigger challenge is getting people to understand what kind of hurricane it's going to be. We're not very good at that. We have this system that rates them Cat 1, Cat 2, and it only looks at wind speed, right? And so you're generally, if we're giving you a 5-point scale, you would be very right to assume a Cat 1 is always going to be less bad than a Cat 2. But unfortunately, that's not right, because there are so many other parts of a storm. You have storm surge if you're at the beach, that the water's going to come up. You have flooding rain, which it might rain 30 inches and it might only be a Cat 1, but that could be the worst weather you've ever had in your whole life if you live in Lumberton. And you get Matthew and you get flooded off the planet, and then same thing in Florence. For them, those are the worst storms ever, and it might have only been a Cat 1. So there are all these little finer impacts that don't fit nicely into the scale. So our challenge in the days ahead and the week ahead is to tell you what kind of storm or what kind of hurricane it's going to be. And with Helene, for example, I know this is, generational disaster in Western North Carolina. Most of the local meteorologists and the National Weather Service, they had this pit in their stomach of, God, this looks really bad with the flooding. This could be worse flooding than people have seen before. It was still a little bit even worse than projected numbers just by the stats. But getting people ready for that is really hard to do. It was only a tropical storm when it got there. So you're dealing with people that haven't had many hurricanes before in the mountains. You're trying to get them ready for something that they haven't ever gotten ready for. So if you're in Greensboro, I'm telling you, get ready for flooding like you've never seen. Well, you've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So how do you get ready for that? And that probably won't happen. There's kind of, you're getting to sociology now and getting people to act for something. That's the really hard thing, is getting people ready for those type of things. And then sometimes things can happen that you don't expect. And that's where the forecast might just be wrong. But I think the communication part is really a challenge, especially in today's world where you can get info from so many places. Cutting through that noise is really hard.
Yeah. With Helene and Katrina, like the flooding was the issue more so than the actual storm. Like the fact that the storm just sat, right? And then people by water were affected way more than people who had a little bit of land.
And with Katrina, weird personal story for me, my first day of weather class at Penn State was when Katrina hit.
You were a freshman. You were a freshman, right?
Correct. Yeah. And you'll remember it was like right around Labor Day, something like that, earlier, or right around when you're starting college. We just sat there and watched TV in class. And that storm, New Orleans thought they did okay. And they prepped like crazy and all that stuff. They were doing all right up until those levees broke. So if they didn't break, New Orleans wouldn't that wouldn't have been the storm that people talked about forever. Um, but again, it just goes to show you one little thing going wrong, like in this case, an engineering thing with those levees, that made all the difference. And with Western North Carolina, it's those flooding, the mudslides and the rivers coming up in Asheville, and still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you always remember where you were with Katrina. I mean, I remember 9/11, obviously, and like I remember the Iraqi war, watching that in AP government. You're watching a war happen for kind of the real first time when you're aware of it. I was watching in my AP government class my junior year, like them like bombing Iraq. Anyway,
it was very March Madness.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. I remember they would do at the halftime report of this is when Syracuse won the national championship. I think in like 2003. They would be doing war reports in the middle of the games.
Yeah, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, Osama bin Laden stuff too. I learned that was the first time I was like, Twitter broke the news to me was when Osama bin Laden got killed. I just watched a documentary on him, on that whole thing, the operation. So it's on the front of my mind. But that was when I was like, man, Twitter is breaking this news to me, which is very different at that time. Anyway, all right, let's get out of hurricanes, move to snowstorms. This may be, I think snowstorms in general, especially in North Carolina, like there's been some bad ones that have definitely affected people's lives, but it's usually a fun thing for the majority of people. Maybe not the olds, but I mean, as a kid in North Carolina, like we used to get one or two snows a year that were pretty significant out of school for at least a couple days. I remember one year we're out for like almost 2 weeks, but it's such, when you're a kid, man, it is awesome. Probably not when you have to go to the grocery store, get food and stay off the roads and stuff, but what's it like tracking snow in North Carolina? What do you like about it? What are the challenges? And then maybe like, what do people say to you about that? You probably get such an uptick in your social media interactions, good or bad, during one of those snowstorms. And then the ice storms are also like really bad too. So yeah, let's get to that.
As a upstate New York kid that grew up with snow, I never would have expected that working in North Carolina, snow was still going to be the biggest thing that we do. Mm-hmm. Snow is the biggest thing that we do as far as like an engagement and a numbers thing. North Carolinians love snow. Some of them hate it, I guess, but more than that, people love it and they want it because we don't get it that much. And they get so freaking emotional about snow. All of us have emotions with snow, whether you want it to come or not. So love it or hate it, there's always going to be something to talk about, and people are going to be happy or they're going to be upset. It is definitely the hardest thing for us to forecast, and it sounds so easy, like just tell me if it's going to snow or not. It is the hardest question to answer around here, and it's not that we live in some special magical place that it's so hard to snow here. It is hard for it to snow in North Carolina. And I always remind our viewers of that every time. It's not me poo-pooing on the snow chance, but like, guys, it's hard to get it right here. It's hard for that snow to actually happen. And from a forecast standpoint, you have to get every detail right to figure out how much it's going to snow. You need to know how much moisture there's going to be. So how much water's in the air. You need to know the temperature at the ground, which is not so hard. Maybe it'll be 30 degrees at the ground. Maybe it'll be 35. But then you need to know the temperature in the cloud. And that obviously has to be below freezing to get a snowflake. But then you have to know that the temperature for every foot of that snowflake falling down to the ground. And if there's 2 feet in the air where that temperature is going to be above freezing, that snowflake's going to melt. And once the snowflake melts, you're never going to get back. So you can refreeze it, and that's where you get into sleet, which no one likes. You can't build a snowman out of sleet. But you can get freezing rain, and then you have to, deal with a power outage. But to get a nice, crisp, clean snowflake, you have to have everything right. And then we have to talk about the timing. What's the sunlight angle factor? Is it going to stick to the ground? All of these things play into it. So it's from a weather geek standpoint, it's challenging, it's fun, and boy, if you get that forecast right, you say 8 to 10 inches of snow, and if it snows 8 to 10 inches, like we're popping up the best bourbon that week. Like it's a great feeling. That's funny. But there's a lot of other times where you have the pie on the face, where you said 4 inches of snow, and there's a trace to an inch, and no one's making a snowman. So and that's when people get grumpy.
Yeah, how do you balance? Yeah, how do you balance like I don't want to be too aggressive with this forecast and say 6 inches when
Yeah.
there's a good chance it could be nothing. Or, you know, all right, we could get 2 inches, but there's a good chance. How do you balance that to get a forecast right? And does it change? Because you're in Guilford County, like, could it change northern Guilford County versus southern Guilford County, or Winston-Salem versus Greensboro and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Summerfield could have half a foot and Pleasant Garden could have an inch or less. And that happens quite often. Wake County meteorologists always, they have it so bad. They have it so bad. The geography of Wake County is so crazy. Like, you don't realize when you're driving through the triangle, but like Durham is way more elevated than, you know, down by Fuquay. It is so much, it's a different climate, basically. You're going through a different area. So all of that plays into it, like you said. So how do we deal with it if it doesn't pan out right? My policies, I'm just gonna be honest with you. So like, this is what I'm expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And when it doesn't pan out, or if it doesn't happen the way we said, I'm not gonna say, well, actually, you know, if you look, we said 2 inches for no, like, you know, it was wrong. I know it was wrong. I'll tell you it was wrong. We got to build trust with people. They're only going to follow you if they trust you. It's always good just to be honest. Hey, we missed this. We're going to move on. But from an aggressive standpoint or not, I'm typically not very aggressive when it comes to numbers. So nowadays, everyone going to get the phone notifications of iPhone weather says 10 inches of snow next week. I'm never going to say that in my freaking life, because that happens once every 10 years around here. It doesn't happen that often. And just law of averages saying something's going to go wrong. And something usually goes wrong to prevent those big snows from happening. So usually your local meteorologists are going to have lower numbers just based on our experience and knowing how hard it is to get that to happen. So there's a measure of, I expect this might be undercut a little bit just to allow for that going wrong factor. And then you see how it works out in the end.
During these big snowstorm periods, you know, a couple days before the storm, and then the storm's coming. And same with hurricanes. Like, are you living at the station? Are you still keeping the same hours, or are you kind of like, all right, I'm gonna be here for this whole storm through the night, even into the morning? Like, how does that work with how much you're? I mean, because you also have coworkers that do the same thing you do. How's that kind of work during these big important weather patterns?
Big storm, big hurricane, big snowstorm, something like that. I always go to work with stuff to sleep with if I have to. I usually don't stay overnight. I don't think I ever have, actually. There have been a couple times I couldn't get home after a snowstorm. You know, neighborhood roads don't get plowed, right? And a lot of times when we're driving home after the coverage with the snow, even the main roads still aren't plowed either. So there've been a couple times where I don't live that far from work, probably like 7 miles, but I drive a mile downtown and stay at the hotel instead.
Oh, really?
Because you can't always get home.
Yeah.
I got a Honda Accord. It does okay, but it's not, you know, it's not a magical snow vehicle. So we're always prepared to stay. But to answer your question, much longer hours. We usually split it up for TV coverage, like 12 hours morning, 12 hours evening for the people, the shifts. But nowadays, you know, I don't want my feeds to be empty for 12 hours out of the day. So I wouldn't say I'm working 24/7, but with snow, especially, you know, that 5 days leading up to it, I'm going to be putting a lot of updates out there, and I'm really going to be just, you know, pulling my hair out trying to figure out what's going to happen for every 3 hours or so in those days leading up to it.
It's exciting. I mean, like, from covering sports teams, like, we get jacked up for the playoffs, like the NCAA tournament. You know, football team, Carolina, not so much, but kind of get on a run. All right, you know, there's a chance we could make the ACC tournament or ACC championship game in football. Basketball is, you know, all right, we're rolling. UNC's rolling. ACC tournament. Can they win March? Here comes one. So the same thing with your job. It's like, all right, big storm season. Like, it's exciting to get to that moment, and then like maybe a week or two off, then another storm comes. Yeah, it's certainly like, I mean, it's some of these things are like your Super Bowl. Like, September hurricane season is like your Super Bowl, you know?
It's true. I'll give you an example. The biggest snowstorm we had this year, which wasn't that big. I guess we got like 3-4 inches maybe. It was in January. It was the day after the college football semifinal, which was in my team was in it. Penn State was in it. We were playing Notre Dame. And I was like, I'm not going to miss this. We haven't been in the Final Four yet. I got to go. So I planned this trip. You only get 10 days notice that this isn't even going to happen. Plan this trip. And then I start to see the weather models. It's like, oh, son of a, there's going to be a freaking snowstorm. And it's probably going to be the day of or the day after the Orange Bowl. I don't think I already bought all my stuff. So I don't know if I can go. So what ended up happening is I flew down the day of the bowl. I went to the game. Game ends like, over close to overtime, midnight-ish or something like that. And then I got on a plane 7 a.m. the next morning to come back to Greensboro to talk about the snow, which was that next day. So that's kind of the level of on versus off. Like you said, you don't get many of those chances throughout the year to talk about big weather. So
the flex.
Kind of want to be involved in that.
Yeah. All right. I think that concludes our deep weather discussion. I want to get in a couple off-topic things. Sell us on, first of all, let me do a little ad read. Delta Spirits, drink deltaspirits.com. THC drinks are becoming bigger and bigger. It's a great way to avoid alcohol on the weeknights with your spouse. Grab a Delta Spirits, drink deltaspirits.com. You can make a little cocktail with these things. These cans are delicious. Cherry limeade, put them over ice. It's a relaxing way, no hangover. THC, there's a 5 milligram one. I think one of these is 10 milligrams. And that will do the trick. You can split this and you'll be good from about 8 p.m. on. So drink deltaspirits.com, promo code BHO10. All right, Tim, sell us on being a Penn State football fan. The good parts, the bad parts, what you like about it. I know you went there, so you kind of have to be, but like that's a team that I think it's just tough with Michigan and Ohio State there, but it's a big-time program. It's the flagship school in the state. It's got all the resources it needs. It's difficult geographically to recruit to a little bit, I think. Middle of nowhere, I've heard, like to even fly in there is super difficult. So recruiting changes. And then James Franklin, who I was in Nashville when he was at Vanderbilt. So I'm actually pretty familiar with James Franklin because he's always on the radio because Vanderbilt was rolling. And I was living in Nashville. He was there for the whole 3 years I was there. Give us a breakdown of what's it like being a Penn State fan, the challenges, the ups, the downs.
It's like watching the same movie every year that you give 3 stars, not 4 stars. It's a really good movie, but it's not the best movie you've ever seen. And maybe they don't stick the landing. It's kind of like that. We are a happy bunch generally, but we have an inferiority complex because you have the best football program in the country outside of maybe 2 in the state next to you. Ohio State is just on another planet, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. They whatever we do, they're going to do it a little bit better. So we're there. We're in that perpetual 10-2, 11-1 scenario, which is good most of the time, but we can't get those big wins. So that's kind of our big bugaboo is like, how do we get over that hump? And last year, maybe it was closer to it, but even if we went to the title game, we're not going to be at Ohio State, probably, the way they were playing. This year, I don't know. Some of these people are saying, oh, they're number 1 preseason. I don't know about that. We return a whole lot of people. But just being a Penn State fan in general, it's very unique. If you've never been to a game up there and if you love college football, highly recommend it. I've been to most of the big college football places, stadiums in the country, not all of them, but most. Alabama, Auburn, all the Big Ten schools, we do it differently than everybody else. I'm not saying it's better, but it's different. You are absolutely right. You can't get there. You cannot get to State College. It is impossible to get to. So you're just driving through these cow fields and cornfields, and then all of a sudden it's 45,000 kids and cows and the biggest football stadium you've ever seen. I mean, the Big House is bigger by people, but the Big House is down into the ground. Beaver Stadium's like up, and it's in the middle of no place. So it looks out of place. You get in there, it's freaking loud. You can go to a whiteout game if you can. Super fun.
So where do you fly into from if you're in Greensboro to go to a game over a weekend? What's your itinerary flight wise?
I usually drive.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because it's that hard. So you can fly like connect in Charlotte and then get a flight to State College. There's a little airport there.
From Charlotte.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's usually like 800 or $900
Okay.
because it's one of these small airport things. Or you could fly to Pittsburgh and drive 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Or you could fly to Harrisburg and drive 90 minutes. Or you could fly to Philly and drive 3 hours. Or I can just get in my car and have my own car and drive 7 hours and listen to podcasts on the way or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a tough thing.
By the time you go Greensboro to Charlotte or Greensboro to Raleigh to Harrisburg or Philly or Pittsburgh, you're probably already in about 6 or 7 hours travel time with all the parking, getting there early, getting a rental car, driving 2 flights,
It's a haul for sure. But if you're a fan, once you get there, I talked to a lot of App State fans that we played them a couple years ago. Everybody had a great time. Unless you're a Buckeye fan, you're mostly going to be treated pretty well. And the tailgate lots are in cow fields. You see cars parked as far as the eye can see. So it's really just this very unique experience. People get there at 8 a.m. No matter what the game time is. It's an event. No one gets there easily. So everyone in the state has driven 2 hours at least too. So everyone there is there to have a good time. They want the football team to win. They're going to cheer loud, but they're going to party really hard at the tailgates too. And it's a fun fan base. It's a fun place. We have our faults. We have our crazies, but it's a fun group to be a part of, even if we're a little bit, the bridesmaid.
I mean, Big Ten football is awesome, and it's just different. Having been in Michigan for a year, and I'm very aware of how awesome most Big Ten football scenes are. And now
you were there when they won it.
Yeah, I was there. They won. It was awesome.
Crazy.
I took full advantage. I went to 2 games, and I watched the championship game pretty close to downtown, and then went to the main drag in Ann Arbor, and then went to campus too. It was awesome. But now you get to go to games in Washington, in UCLA, USC. So you have some cool destinations now that are different, which I think is really exciting for Big Ten fans to travel a little bit more. Oh, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA. So a little bit different, even though the whole realignment, it kind of sucks from a regional aspect. There are some benefits for some cool away game travels. Like UNC, I kind of hope we go to the SEC. So then you have some really fun environments, Tennessee, Florida, LSU, Alabama. So it's definitely changing. All right, last thing, Greensboro talk. Quickly, I know you got to get out of here in a second. I just moved back to Greensboro a little less than a year ago. You've been here for 12 years. What do you like about living in Greensboro? And then, like, sell it to someone, to a family, to a single guy in his 20s or 30s moving here. And then what do you think the biggest thing or biggest things Greensboro lacks and needs and like to take the next step to be a more desirable place to live?
Big Greensboro fan. I wouldn't be here still if I didn't love it. I think it's a great place to live. There's no traffic.
I know.
There's no traffic. I don't know how, but somewhere along the line, they built us more roads than we need. We have so many roads. This is a dumb thing to talk about, but like if you live in Charlotte, if you live in Raleigh, traffic is a part of your life. I never even think about it. And you probably don't either. This is not a thing that we have to deal with. We have great parks. The weather's pretty good. There's stuff to do. You got the Coliseum, there's some concerts that come in. Things that we need more of, I would say, just a little more of everything. A couple more events every year. It'd be nice to have a couple other sports teams. I mean, you got we actually have that hockey team coming in.
The Gargoyles.
Gargoyles, yes. There's talk about a soccer thing that might get built, but I don't think that's confirmed yet. A little bit more on the sports side would be nice. And more restaurants, bars, breweries, and the like, I think would be needed. But I don't know, man. I mean, things are building here now. You've got the factories coming in, the Toyota, and all this stuff at the airport. I think it's gonna be getting up there. So
I always tell people it's easy living, and then I mentioned the traffic. It's unreal. I mean, it's obviously not as many people as Charlotte or Raleigh by a whole amount, but like the way it's constructed, whether it be Windover or Friendly and Market, Battleground, Bryan Boulevard, and then the outer loop, I guess, which is new to me. Like the way it's constructed, it never takes longer than 5 to 10 minutes to go anywhere relatively close, and then if you're going across town, from suburb to suburb, it takes 15 maybe. It's unbelievable the lack of traffic, even during rush hour. It's never bad during rush hour, and then anytime outside, it's great. And then yeah, I agree. I think more people need to be living downtown, and for that to happen, I think you
Yeah.
need a company or two, like a big company, to open up an office downtown, have more people downtown, because then you get more restaurants, more bars, more things to do. Downtown, I still think I've seen it grow since 1986 to now.
Yeah.
It's come a far, it's come a really far way, but there still needs to be more activity. I think people would like to live out in the western part of the
Mhm.
city, where there's a lot of apartments out there, but there are more
Yeah.
apartments downtown. But they need more people living downtown, more companies downtown to then get more coffee shops, more restaurants, more bars, maybe another event space. I think that'd be the next step for the city.
I agree. Downtown needs a little bit of help. I like being close to the mountains too. It's day trippable to the mountains. I didn't expect that when I moved here, but
You can
I
get
go up there every
to
now and
you can get to Blue Ridge Parkway in less than 2 hours in Virginia, and
then.
then
Yep.
get to Boone area in about, I guess, what, two and a half, so maybe less
Yeah.
than two.
And I still go to Wilmington like, I don't know, every couple weeks. I love it down there.
Yeah,
In the summertime.
the beach is not far either, halfway between the mountains and the beach. All right, Tim, really appreciate this. I hope people enjoyed this different kind of podcast. I think you're obviously very professional, so it's like a very smooth pod, I thought, in terms of how in depth you went, and your answers and things. So that was awesome. We appreciate your time. Guys, remember to rate, review, subscribe to Big Hitters Only on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Check out drinkdeltaspirits.com, promo code BHO. We'll talk to you next time.